So welcome to Success Uncut, episode number 3. I've got with me today Greg Dyer. Me and Greg go way back, and we kind of parallel each other in the fitness industry. Where Greg, you've been a personal trainer for a long time, and lately has been really branched off into your personal brand. Wrote a book, got some educational seminars that you do. Man, why don't you jump in and kind of tell me what you got going on, Greg?
Dude, I appreciate it. And yeah, I think we met like 10, 12 years ago or something like that. And I think you and I have, bounced back and forth ideas and things to do and whatnot. And then, yeah, and this past year, I finished up a book that I wrote, and it's called, Follow Your Bliss, A Guide to a Powerful Mindset. And these are just things that I've learned over the years as a trainer, just seeing, what was working for people and what wasn't, and generally a frustration that I had with the industry as a whole, and this whole focus on calories in, calories out. Here's your diet. Here's your workout regimen. If you don't do that, you suck, and it's your fault that you're not getting where you're going.
Right.
And I was like, wow, I'm bringing these clients through, and I can get them, maybe 30 pounds off in a 12-week program or something like that.
I'd take that.
Maybe 15 pounds off or something like that. But the thing is that what I was seeing is that they would have a success, whatever it was, and maybe it's 30 pounds in 6 months. I don't, the success would happen, and then they would fall back into their life. They'd be like, "Cool, Greg, thank you so much," and they'd fall back into their life, and then they're back in my, I see them like about 6, 8 months, 10 months later, and the weight's back on.
Those changes don't take permanent changes, right? They
right.
Set.
What I was seeing was just like, man, this model that we have, or at least the one that I adopted because of the industry, is unsustainable. I saw it throughout the industry. I saw other trainers doing the same thing, and their clients are just, they're not finding that sustainable success. Along the way, I started hearing all these stories that my clients would tell me, either verbally, or they would be talking about something else, unrelated, supposedly, to what was going on. And I started putting all this stuff together. I'm like, wow, they've got these stories that are running the show up here.
Right.
It doesn't matter what.
The story that they tell themselves over and over and over again.
Right. And it usually kind of some variation of I'm not worthy, or I'm unlovable, or something like that. And so there are people in their lives to reinforce this. A spouse, their parents, something like that, and a lot of times these stories start when we were younger.
Oh, absolutely.
We adopted these things, when a parent was doing something. God, one of the ones that I found really kind of pervasive, it was this happened a couple times, but a client would tell me my mother was always on a diet and always talking about being fat or putting me on a diet. And 12 years old, and you're like going, really?
Man. Well, that creates a story right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I talk a lot about that with being successful, is you can't be successful if you think of yourself as not being good enough.
Right.
You don't self-sabotage yourself, which I'm sure happens a lot in your field of personal training.
Sure.
They get to where they want to be, but ultimately their story takes over, takes control, and they're fulfill that self-fulfilling prophecy of, this is who I am, and I'm going to make sure I am that person, right?
Boom.
Boom.
The habits that they had adopted all along, whether or not they were reaching for food or whatever else that they were doing to cause their bodies to say, hey, we need to slow down and go into protect mode and let's put some weight on. Those habits were there, and most of them, they're thought habits that just kind of tell the body, hey, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. So you start seeing patterns.
Right.
Start seeing patterns in people, which I'm assuming led you to write Follow Your Bliss.
It was one of those things. I all of a sudden was filled with all these questions that stepped outside of what we would normally think about this reality, and there were ways to bust. They're like pattern interrupts in the way that we think. One of the ones that came to me was like, is it the food that's making us fat, or the thought of the food that's making us fat?
It's deep, man.
The judgment part of it is like, wow, and there's like no right or wrong answers or judgment, any kind of awareness that we come to this stuff. It's a means of breaking apart your thought cycles.
Yeah.
And
rewiring those thoughts, retelling that story. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
That's powerful, man.
And so that led to, the book Follow Your Bliss, A Guide to a Powerful Mindset, and part of that was just shifting into that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that? And it's not about revisiting the point of origin of when it happened or going through all that stuff, the talk therapy thing that we tend to fall into today that's so popular. It's just getting to the place like going, okay, I see it. Can I change it?
Just the awareness.
Yeah. What would I do? Well, you can write a new story. Mm-hmm. How do you do that? Okay. There's some really good thoughts in the book.
So just taking that tangible in your field where you're training, how many people think you've trained over the last, how long, 15 years you've been doing this?
Close, 13 years.
13 years you've been personal training? How many people do you think?
Man.
Thousands?
Oh, at least several hundreds of people that have come through my my world.
Yeah. I can't remember what I was going to say about that, but I just went off in left field there. All those people that you've trained, how many people do you think that fall into that trap? Or how many people do you think can actually rewire, their story to actually have that permanent success?
Most of my time as a trainer up until, this year, I spent in that old paradigm. I was shifting over and starting to talk about the stories, but it's really interesting when you're dealing with somebody that came to you as a personal trainer and they're kind of expecting, here's your diet, here's your workout plan, and all of that.
So now you're throwing in some therapy in there too, or what?
Start kind of talking about these things. They're looking at me like,
so, hey, tell me about your childhood.
How was your relationship with your mother? No, it's just, it's just, I start hearing the stories and I'll stop them. And I'll be like, hey, and whatever, you kind of get a sense for these things. You can feel the energy of the question, or whatever it is they're speaking. There's things that just kind of go boom, and you're looking at it going, wow, there's a story in that is a block for them that's kind of holding them back from getting where they would like to go.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are really, open to the idea of it. Other ones are they're finding excuses around it to hold that story because that's their reality.
Yeah, because that's a comfort.
Exactly.
That's comfortable for
you. Know this one from your world.
I am that. I mean, we all tell ourselves stories of who we are.
I still do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, in talking about this stuff, it's not that, you're some transcendent expert on things or whatever. It's just that you all of a sudden saw these possibilities and have some tools that might be able to help you when they pop up. It's not that they never pop up again.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I tell
all the time
stories that are just, and I look at them like, really?
Well, that's cool that you have the ability to check yourself and realize, hey, that's a story that I keep telling myself that's not true. That's not a true story. Let me rewrite that. Most people don't have that self-awareness to say, I'm not sure if that story of me not being good enough or this is who I am, an overweight person, I'm not sure if they have the awareness a lot of times to do that. And so how does that work? Like when you're training these clients and you're hearing these stories and you stop them and say, hey, that story's not true. Well, do you get some backlash on that? I bet you do.
It's interesting. There are a couple different type of people that I see. They're the ones that look at it and go, wow, okay, what do I do with this? And then we go through, some of these processes. I'll work with them on some possible, for meditation or visualization to begin to shift this thought process, these patterns that they've got going on, and get them into a place where, the thing is, Kurt, and you know this, any story that we have that's telling us that we're unworthy or unlovable or unable to do this or whatever, that's a lie.
Oh, for sure.
Unless we want to adopt it as a truth.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that we want to place in there for that story is only going to be true until, once we choose that's what we would like to have for our truth. Yeah. So if we want to run along going, hey, I'm overweight, I'm going to be the fat kid and I'm going to stay the fat kid and that's just that, fine, okay. Right. If it's working for you, keep it. There's no judgment here, is what I'm saying. If you want to shift it, and if you're in my world, in the gym working with me, there's part of you that wants to shift this.
if you're paying a trainer
Yeah.
to beat the hell out of you to get in shape, why wouldn't you not want to shift it, right? But it's hard for people because that's what they've known and that's what's comfortable for them, right? So the most basic, simple form of what we're talking about right here is, and we'll use being overweight as an example, is if you believe yourself to be a person that is overweight, that's just who you are, and every decision and every action that you make reinforces that belief that that's who you are. But if you change your mind to say, nope, I'm not an overweight person, I'm just overweight now, and I'm actually a healthy person that's just fallen off track a little bit. If you can rewrite that thought process, right, then you can actually accomplish being that healthy in shape or whatever you want person. It's the problem that runs into is the belief that that's who they are, and there's no changing that.
The thing that I came to realize all along as a trainer, and I don't know why I didn't stick this more up front in how I was, guiding people through this process, was that original mindset of being able to see yourself as what, that person that you want to become, as if it has already happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that shift, and that's sometimes a difficult process because we're living in the now. We're looking at the reality of what we have right now. We see in the mirror, I'm like, well, I'm not a thin person. You see that reality. But to shift into the mindset and see it in your mind as a person who isn't carrying that weight, and see the person that you would like to be in your mind, now you got the most powerful tool in the world.
And everything changes after that.
Yep.
The decisions that you make changes.
Yep.
Your habitual patterns will shift to match what it is. People will show up in your life to help you along the way, to give you parts of this thing.
And you're a trainer, and that's the example you're using. I do a lot of business, and obviously my background is nutrition. I use the example. I actually just had a speech at a high school. I use this example. Is my story I kept telling myself was, as long as I make just enough money to pay my bills, I'm okay. So forever, I make just enough money to pay my bills, and I was okay. No matter if I made more money, guess what? My bills were higher. If I made less money, I dropped down the bills, and I just kept doing that. And I had to change that thought process. I had to change that story in my head of like, no, I'm going to make more money than what my bills are and have a comfortable life. Once I changed that and I rewired my brain for that, all my decisions, how I made decisions changed. Everything changed, man.
Absolutely.
But what I will say is you have to reinforce that, because I can fall right back in that pattern of I'm making just enough money to pay my bills. And I go, wait, I know what I'm doing there. I got to stop it.
That's the thing that I see with these clients that get to where they would like to be, and then they go off on their own, and maybe those tools aren't reinforced, or as in the case of the model that I was operating under before, I didn't give them those tools. We didn't talk about this stuff,
right?
And so they would leave happy that of course that they achieved the goal that they were looking at. And this brings up another good point too. They get to that goal and they think that's the end.
Yeah, they finished.
Woohoo, we're done. No, you're just to the next day. Come on, next moment.
So are you seeing higher success rates now with your clients?
I am seeing what I'm seeing is an awakening that's happening with my clients, and it's stepping in. And you know this too. It's like you step into the power of your world. Now you've got the control over it. It's no longer got the control over you. So yes. Mm-hmm. Once that's happened, now you can direct things, and then you can start looking at it from the standpoint of, maybe instead of coming in to see me the next day and you just demolished the whole pizza the night before, instead of saying to me, wow, Greg, I feel like crap because I just ate the whole pizza. I'm horrible. I'm like this. And you're like, hey, I ate a whole pizza last night. Oh, cool. Did it taste good? Yeah. What are you going to do today? I'm going to fall into my meal plan like I've got planned. Mm-hmm. Instead of that becoming this guilt trip that we have. Mm-hmm. And it's just, so it's not even, I don't know. It's not even like a speed bump anymore. We begin to remove the judgment about the food.
Right.
The judgment of the choices. They're just choices.
Right. Yeah.
When that happens, I start seeing that success. It's shifting that thing. And everybody's different, whether they're going to be ready to make the change or not. Mm-hmm. I imagine you know this, and you teach this too, that making a choice is the easy part. It's getting ready to make the choice.
Takes a lot to get to that place to make a choice, and then you have to execute.
Yep.
Yeah. Execution's everything. So tell me about your book.
Sure.
So that's the process you leading up to writing the book. How long have you had it out now?
I published it the beginning of the year. So it's been out and been on Amazon.
Almost a year?
Yep. We can get both the hard copy version and I've got a digital version that people can download as well.
All right.
And man, basically, you know what it's turned out to be? Kind of a really cool business card, if anything. Yeah. It's like, here. I did this. Oh, that's you? Yeah, that's me.
Let's get a picture of it.
Oh.
Throw it up there so people can see it.
There it is.
All right, so Follow Your Bliss, and you can find that on Amazon. Where else?
Or directly from me.
Directly from you.
Uh-huh.
All right, Greg Dyer. You have a website?
I do. Greg at consciousgreg.com.
Consciousgreg.com. I like that.
Yep.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right, so you do a lot more stuff there than writing books and personal training. You also
do.
do some educational stuff, too.
So, you know, it was really fun about this, and I imagine you saw this once you began to do something. All of a sudden, the floodgate opened up, and you started seeing things that you never would have done before.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately after doing this, I had been working with another friend of mine to create another education program based upon his book, which is the title just escaped me. Anyway, I'll come back to it. But it's an education program based in mindset as well. And what we're doing is taking personal trainers and other wellness professionals through this thing to help them to learn the guiding principles and the criteria of mindfulness. There's 10 principles and 5 criteria based around mindfulness. So we created this program, and while I was doing that, and I'm writing this whole thing. And it's like, at this point, it's like 140 pages worth of material to create this program. And in the middle of it, I'm like, wait, I think there's a program in this. I should start writing it. And all of a sudden, I just dumped all of this stuff out and created a workbook based upon it, and a 6-week program. And this is the process that I saw happening. I can see this with my clients too. Once the success starts happening, bam, more happens, and we start bringing that in. So I spent the whole rest of this year, well, about 6 months of the year, creating these 2 different programs and then launching them. I've run 4 different 6 weeks to bliss classes successfully, and these people are having a great time with the tools that I've given them based upon the book to this point now. The first one I started in May and ran 6 weeks, and then I did a couple over the summer, and then I just finished one the other night, the 4th one, and I'll start up another one at the beginning of the year again. And
so if I wanted to join the program, to go to the same website, or do you have a different?
You can. I will. I've been putting them out based, on Facebook so far, the social media thing. So it can be a pretty powerful tool, but it also can be a really kind of lazy tool as well. But
social media, yeah.
So far, I've been using on a social media, so that people can either reach out to me on that, and it's just Greg Dyer on Facebook. That's probably the best thing to do.
Cool.
Or my email address that I just gave you. Hey, Greg, how do I do this? And then I'll when I have the next start date, which is going to be right after the first of the year, and then 6 weeks beyond that, we'll do every day. Every
And you've got one coming up, don't you?
I have an in-person though.
Oh, okay.
Workshop.
Yeah. A workshop in person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've decided to take that 6 weeks now and the success that I've had with that, and try it in a 6-hour workshop in a day, and just sit with the people and see. I don't know. That just kind of feels kind of interesting to me.
I like that. I like the one-on-one kind of in-person stuff.
Yeah,
that's
agreed.
good.
And the online stuff is on Zoom, so I mean, it kind of get that same feeling, but they can be anywhere in the world. I mean, I just finished one, and 3 of the people were in Florida, so.
Oh yeah, for
that's
sure.
pretty
That
fun.
makes it convenient.
Yes.
For sure. So I mean, this is where you are now, right? You've written a book, you've been personal training for 13 years, and I'd say 13 years of personal training. If you're still doing it, you're successful, because you see personal trainers come and go. Man, it is not an easy gig. You become 90% marketer, 10% actual trainer at some point, and but here's what I like to hear about on this show is tell me where you came from. Tell me more about like just the down and out spots, man, that you had to get through.
So basically, most of the 13 years that I've been as a trainer, right? Sometimes I see the success that I've had as a trainer, but it's been like a lot along the lines of the way you talk about your story. Just enough to get the bills.
Mm-hmm.
And if any of you guys have ever been personal trainers, you kind of know that even to get to just enough to pay the bills, that's some hustle.
Oh yeah.
And to get beyond that, that's the place where you start finding yourself in that down and out. And what do you do to get up every day and go, wow, man, I really am looking forward to this today?
To get remotivated to go
Yeah.
do it again. Yeah.
And there are days when it's like, wow, I just want to sleep. Pull the covers up and go, oh, I don't want to deal with this. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. It's cold outside. I don't want to go train somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But
you have a specific time in mind that you're looking back, just, man, that was a rough time to get through?
Dealing with things after my second separation and divorce, which I wrote about in the book, there was a period in there I look back, I'm like, man, I really tried to tank my business.
Is that maybe a part of that story?
Yes, it is. It's in there,
right? Like you're telling your story. Yeah,
and I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I just kind of just trudging through the day, and my mind was focused on the fact that I had just lost everything that I'd built, basically, the way I looked at it. And I had this really transcendent moment standing there with a client. He'd been a client of mine for 3 or 4 years at that point. We'd become good friends, and he looks at me and goes, Greg, do I need to just go hire a new trainer? What are you going to do here? Whoa. You sit there and you look at it and you're like, man, I got to start paying attention to what I'm doing. And then I did. I woke up, at that moment I woke up and I looked around. I'm like, man, my client.
The client knows it's going on, yeah.
My client load has dropped by more than half, and I'm barely making the bills, and and my bills aren't that much because I'm staying at a friend's house. And it's like, oh, goodness gracious, we got to get the focus back on here. So
what'd you do?
I began asking questions at that point. There were 2 questions that I use all the time that I teach. And the first one was like, what else is possible? So you're sitting in that dark moment going, this sucks, should I just end it and chuck it all in right now? And then, of course, you're looking at your kid going, well, probably not, because I got her.
Yeah.
So you ask that question, what else is possible? And what that started to do was shift things open. I began to see a little bit of light through there. And I was like, oh, well, then I go over here and do this. Okay. Well, if I'm going to pay attention to these clients, what will happen? Cool. They re-up. Okay, cool. Hey, this one just brought another client into me. Oh, cool.
Start focusing
on
the
positive parts of things and ask that question, what else is possible? No matter what's going on, what else is possible? What else is possible? And you begin to see. And so that narrow little window I was looking through of, wow, I'm going through separation, divorce, my world's falling apart, I've lost my family, and all the other stuff that's going on.
Negative mindset.
It's just that really narrow little spice. All of a sudden, that question pops it up a little bit. Keep asking.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
And then your world opens
What
up.
else is possible?
What else is possible?
I like that.
And that began to teach me the power of question. The power isn't in the answer, like we've always been taught.
Mm-hmm.
That knowledge is power. No, the question's the power.
You start with the questions and then you find the knowledge, right?
Well, the thing
or
is,
it leads you in that path to find something.
The difficulty that I find with the knowledge or the answer, that can become a limitation because you get locked into that.
Mm-hmm.
And now, what are you going to create beyond that? Because there's always more to create.
Mm-hmm. You could always ask that question.
That's all of this. It's in this. Most of this book is just basically about that. Continuing to ask more questions beyond that reality that you're sitting in, that you think you're sitting in, that you created yourself.
Oh yeah, 100%. We create our own world.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
So that was a pretty interesting time.
Yeah,
going through that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I get it. I've been in and out of that quite a few times, man. Lately I've been talking a lot about how I compare. You can compare life, and I talk a lot about business because that's my passion. I compare business to the seasons of like spring and winter and fall and summer, and so everyone loves the summer, man. everyone loves the summer. Everything's great, and you feel good, and everything's awesome, man. Everything's just going well. And that's a building time. And you're maybe in life that you're having a great time in life, and you got a new job, and everything's exciting. But winter will come. Yeah, I think that might be mine.
That's mine.
But it's cyclical, like, so the summer's going to be, but at some point in the opposite of that, a winter's going to hit where shit is really goddamn hard. And you get that very narrow mindset of that negative thinking, have all you can focus on and all the bad shit that's going on, and you get really sucked into that. So I like that question that you pose.
What else is possible?
What else is possible? That's good, man.
There's another one that I like to use. It's how does it get any better than this? And that one's busted a few things open too. And the thing is, I've gotten in the habit of asking, even when things are going really good, still ask it. How's it get any better than this?
Mm-hmm.
And I think about, you remember that old commercial when we were kids? I think it was Old Milwaukee or something like that. The guys are sitting in the fishing boat, and one of them says, "It don't get no better than this."
Yeah. I remember that, yeah.
Yep. Well, it won't.
Yeah. If you definitely say that, it's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better. Right?
So I kind of watch myself on that one too, and continue. How does it get any better than this? How does it get any better than this? And quite frankly, I think that those two questions helped me get over myself and get to the place where I was like, let's get the book published.
Yeah.
Let's get everything together, because the writing was easy. The putting it all together, the editing, and getting to a place where the book was ready for public consumption, that was difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have no idea. I haven't written a book. I'm sure that's not an easy task.
That was the part. And I kept finding, you talk about the story again, especially in like business, you keep finding ways to, the barriers to success, the obstacles. And it's like, well, am I going to learn how to get around these obstacles, or am I going to learn to start looking at them as opportunities?
That's good too. I like that.
And then, this thing that Tony Robbins likes to say, it's never about a lack of resources. It's a lack of resourcefulness.
Yeah.
And that's the place where I got to. I was like, okay, we got to get really resourceful to get this thing done.
Yeah.
And I did. And that was it. That created all of this year.
That's good. Let's give a little knowledge out to the consumer that might be watching this. So we talk about getting to that place where, all right, there's a hurdle or an opportunity, you like to say, right? But it's all about being resourceful, because people fail for lack of resources, lack of money, lack of people that whatever. It's a lack of resources, but how you overcome that is being resourceful. Mm-hmm. What's the first step for you in being resourceful? Like, how is someone out there that's going through something similar? Like, I want to accomplish this. How do I accomplish this? Here's a big hurdle. I'll give you an example of what I'm going through right now. Fit Republic Foods, right? That's a new venture of mine.
Right.
And I want a drive-through. I want it quick and fast and convenient for people. And I'm going to landlords and saying, look at this concept I have. It's amazing. It's fast food. It's healthy. And the concept was, I take this little hut, place it in your parking lot. You're not using this portion of the parking lot anyway. And I'll give you a minimal amount of rent, not a lot, but a little bit, because I'm not doing there's nothing building. It's not permanent. And my mind is like, this is great. And their mind is, I could give a shit less. Right. Because the landlord's not making any money on that building. They would rather build a brand new building. Well, I get it. If you build a brand new building, you're making money on the building. Now you can lease that out for 5 years at $30 a square foot. You're making millions of dollars. Why would you want to even listen to the guy that says, hey, let me pay you $500 a month to put my little hut here, right? So, like, all right, now here's a area of opportunity for me, right? A little hurdle, and I've got to figure out how can I make this happen, because I could either go one of two ways. I could, oh, shoot, I guess that's not going to work, and I'll not do that and quit. Or I say, all right, how can I make this work? What kind of resources do I need to pull together to make this work? So right now what I'm doing is I have a brokerage team. I'm like, all right, I want to get in front of 10 landlords as soon as possible. I want to sit down with them, tell them my concept, and say, hey, how can I make this happen? What do you need to make this happen? And I'll do it for you. I'll whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Instead of saying, well, I guess I got to know can't do this. That's how I get resourceful.
Yeah.
But like, tell me about like when you're in front of a problem, a hurdle. What do you do?
I imagine you do this too. I think you and I kind of talked along these lines before too. But for me, it starts back at that basic place. And maybe I'll tell a little story that I'd heard before. You ever hear the story? This guy was he was in prison most of his life or whatever. And I think he was, 18, 20 years or something like that. He wanted to learn how to play golf when he got out. He knew he was going to get out in such and such day. He every day rehearsed 18 holes of golf in his head. Every day. Visualizing playing a game of golf. And I imagine sitting in prison, you probably have that time to stop and quiet yourself enough to
You
go
probably
ahead.
play many rounds of 18 holes
Right.
in a day.
Exactly. He gets out and he goes and plays a round of golf. Shoots a 74.
His first time playing?
First time playing.
Huh.
The visualization part, that's where I'll start.
Mm.
The meditation part, the visual. I'll take what it is, the question or whatever it is I have, into a space of meditation, or I'll begin to create some kind of visualization around it. It's just like I did when I was a bodybuilder.
Mm.
I stepped into the whole thing. I'm going to be a bodybuilder. I didn't say I'm going to become a bodybuilder. I said I am a bodybuilder.
Right.
And that vision that I had every day was standing on stage, successful at it.
Right. You brought up meditation. I know you use that as a tool. I
Mhm.
like meditation a lot too.
Yeah.
I kick myself because I don't do it as often as I should. Whenever it's funny, like I meditate, everything gets better in my life, and everything's good in my life, and I stop meditating. Isn't that funny how that works?
Yeah. I'm going to go a little bit maybe into the woo-woo side of things here. if
Go
you're
for
all
it,
right.
man. Get deep.
So I'm sitting there last night just reading about this. Wayne Dyer's got a whole bunch of books. I mean, if you've heard of Dr. Wayne Dyer,
Mm-hmm.
he passed away a while ago, but and no relation to me, by the way. But I tell people he's my uncle just because I want to trade on the last name Dyer. But he was talking about meditation and getting into that space. He calls the gap. It's the space between your thoughts.
Okay.
And it's
Following
that empty space. And you've been there if you've been meditating.
And that's what meditation is. Yeah.
To me, when I think about that, and this is the way he kind of talks about it too, is that if you're of this proclivity, that's where God is. That's where you're going to hear that source,
Right.
that inspiration.
Right.
And to get to that gap. And that's where you'll find, like you did there, you say, well, what do I do now? Well, why don't I put 10 landlords in a room and ask them a question?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this is what I'd like to do. What do you need? Did you find? I mean, did you come upon that just in the middle of the day, or did you kind of follow through with that through a meditation, or did you visualize, or?
I just practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
With being resourceful.
Yeah.
So I've just been in that place quite often. But yeah, in the beginning,
Yeah.
early in my days, I would have been just stressed out and worried about the future, and a lot of stress. But no, I would say meditation for me helps me can control my mind better, to be in that space where creativity happens.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't meditate often, my mind just moving a million miles a minute. I can't control it. Can't sleep at night because it's not like we don't have any stress. Yeah,
You're laying there in bed at night,
thinking
how am I
about all
gonna
this.
do this?
Yeah. So it slows me down enough to have that space to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
And in that space, whatever you want to call it, creator,
Mhm.
God, I'm going to say that's where the magic happens.
Absolutely.
That's where the magic happens.
I believe all of us have a gift. I know we talk about gifts and everything, and this guy's got the gift of whatever, the gift of the ability to create businesses, the gift of the ability to, be clairvoyant and hear from the whatever.
Jump
it is.
shot,
I mean, there's
yeah.
gifts, and it's like we can tend to kind of judge each other based upon the gifts, or whether we have a gift, or that guy doesn't have any gifts, or whatever, and it's like, no, we all have the same gift. It's a gift of inspiration, and it comes from the same place. And that's that, in that gap, that's where you're going to start connecting to the inspiration. How you choose to now channel that into the world.
Right.
That's your interpretation of whatever's coming down through here.
Right.
And
I got to start meditating again, Greg.
You and me both. I didn't meditate. Well, I guess I did kind of a little bit of meditation this morning, but it's kind of funny. You get in that space, and like the thoughts that are running into you, and it's like, man, I don't want to deal with these thoughts today.
Yeah.
Boom, turn on the TV.
Yeah, I just want to zone out for a little bit. But yeah, that's good, man. I'm glad you shared the time that it was really hard, because I believe that, I mean, this has been said many times, but the growth doesn't come in the easy stages. The growth comes when things are hard as hell and you're challenged and things are rough. That's when you actually really grow and pick up tools, I think. So that's why I always like to talk about those times of challenge and growth, and that's how I'm going through one right now, man. It's a winner for me right now. Business is kicking my ass right now.
You and me both.
Oh man, I'm taking one on the chin, man. But I know in this time is when I get better, and I'll be better for a year down the road, 5 years down the road. So
I got a new one that I'm going through right now. I don't know if you wanted me to share that.
Go for it, man. I love hearing it.
I've in getting the book out and creating the education programs, it's opened up an opportunity for speaking.
Yeah.
And which is really exciting to me. I imagine you probably feeling the same thing, getting out in front of people going, this is what I got, look at my book, and this is what I got based upon it.
Well, and it also opens up a whole new can of worms.
Oh, yes, it does.
Am I right? Yeah. What I mean by that, like, just so people know what we're talking about, is like, all right, I'm confident in what I do. I could sit next to you one-on-one with you, and I'll talk about what I know about, and I'm confident in that, and I don't talk about things I don't know about, and because I don't want to be a bullshitter, right? So,
right.
But when you stand up in front of a crowd of people, you start wondering and question yourself, wait a second, am I good enough again? That whole story comes back to, wait, who am I to say that I could stand in front of these people and be the expert in this field? Have you experienced that?
Not in the speaking engagements that I'm doing now.
Okay.
But, I've done my own podcast now for 4 years, and I've been a musician most of my life, and I was on stage playing drums and for 30 years or whatever. I think somewhere in that process, I started to let go of that. Go, you know what? What I bring to the stage, as long as I don't try to step outside of that.
As long as you don't try to be someone you're not.
I'm good.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Stay within what it is that I'm here to do, whether it was play drums in a band. It's not like I'm going to get up there and try to play guitar, because that's not what I did. I'm not going to bring that to the world.
Yeah.
Or on a podcast to speak outside of what it is that I know, or that I, that I want, that I feel like I've got some kind of experience or whatever to bring that message out. So getting up in front of people, the tricky part for me is not getting up there and talking and going through it. It's happening afterwards, because being in front of people is such a high.
Oh yeah.
I mean, an amazing high.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I come off, and what I come to find in the the days and weeks after that, there's this low that hits.
A crash.
And you're sitting there going, well, what do I do next? I spent all that time preparing for that talk, and I don't have one put on there. And this was interesting.
And you're referring to the speaking engagement you just had.
Yeah, I just had one about a month ago.
A month ago, right?
Yeah.
30 days ago, yeah.
And it was, it's my first time having, basically 90 minutes to talk. And I had an amazing time. It went super fast. So, I mean, those of you sitting there and think, oh my God, I couldn't talk for 90 minutes. No, I don't think I could talk for 10 minutes. The 90 minutes was great, but it went so fast.
Yeah.
I'm like, but you spend all that time preparing for that. And I came out of that, and I had one more talk after that, which was really interesting. But, I had a good time with that talk too. But after those were done, and, having everything, at the end of basically the end of the year, it's like, well, nothing's booked right now for the rest of this year. And this, I'm new to this too. So this whole speaking thing, well, how do I, I need to, obviously figure out how do I book more of those?
Right.
How do I, use the book as the vehicle to help me get to that? Who do I talk to?
So you're in a position of opportunity right now.
I am.
It's time to get resourceful, right?
I'm sitting here talking to you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. Like, but I think, like you just said, opportunity. You don't have anything booked. That means you could book a million different things could happen right now.
Absolutely.
Like, the sky's the limit, right? So I think at this point for you is it's time to get resourceful and get into that space of creativity and ask yourself that question again, right?
What else is possible?
What else is possible?
Yeah, it's time to get into some good meditation.
So what do you think? What are you going to do?
We're going to go meditate.
I like it.
We're going to build some visualization, see myself standing in front of people again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I woke up and I was like, okay, now what? I don't have the background at this point. So So it's, I'm sitting here.
Well, I could see because the whole buildup was for this speaking engagement. You worked all year for that, right? Or for a while anyway, right? For a while.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that hit. You had a blast. It was a high. But you don't have anything else after that, and you hit a big low. So, oh shit! Now what do I do?
Well, I do have a couple things that I'm going to do.
One
of the things that we talked about, and I'm grateful for the fact that you and I were able to talk about this and utilize one of the tools that you bring into the world with the Fit Republic Foods, because I want to use the foods as part of this thing. But taking the book and taking the program that I have, the 5 modules, and bringing it to a 6-hour workshop that's going to happen January 27th. We're booked out the Coble Library, the Forum in the Coble Library, which is down in Arapahoe County. It's a beautiful room. I love the space. And we're going to go down there and run through these 6 modules in person with me, going through this. I'm going to bring a couple other speakers on board to give their perspective on things, for the different things. And I'd actually like to invite you to come.
Love to come.
And speak as well about your thoughts on the food. I want to put you in the food module.
Sure.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about, obviously, the foods that they're going to get to eat and enjoy that day. And what does that all mean, and how do they fit that into their world. But it's the whole thing. It's about taking the book that I have and putting it into about a 6-hour course and coming away with the tools to not only know how to begin to ask the questions and how to get in the space to utilize those questions and utilize the awareness that's coming and put it into play, but to have the tools around the rest of your life to be able to be in a space to do this. Because let's just face it, I mean, if the food part, if the movement part, if the mindfulness part aren't rolling for you, you're going to have a distraction that's going to keep you from getting this place where you can follow your bliss. And you know what? I never even said to you about this or told you guys about this. What does it mean to follow your bliss?
Go for it.
And it's that thing that you can't not do. You'll hear that call. Basically, the phone's ringing. Are you going to pick it up and answer it? Whatever it is. Hey, you know what?
For me, that's business.
Yeah.
I just can't not do it. And my guys that work with me says, Kurt, they go, just fucking stop. No more business.
No.
Stop it.
Well, that's just the thing. I mean, have you ever been standing there with this thing? You got this idea. It's like, man, I want to do this. And then all of a sudden the reality kicks in. It's like, that's a crazy idea. People are going to think I'm nuts. It'll never work. Or, I'm going to be judged as a lunatic or whatever. And it stops you, right?
Sure.
This is where I think most of the people are. And this is why I wrote the book and why I've come to the way that I'm thinking, because most of the things that I see are people not jumping in and following their bliss, whether it's some long-term bliss of a career that they're here to do, or even the short-term ones in the moment of, I want to go dancing. No, I can't dance because people are going to think I look stupid.
Right.
That's a little bliss. It's like, dude, what happens if you just got out there and danced and just cut loose and let it happen?
Right, and it doesn't have. And again, you're not talking about following your bliss has to be in a career setting or hobbies.
No, it's every moment that we have where there's a bliss that's knocking, saying, "Hey, do this."
Yeah,
and we stop ourselves so much, and then those build up, and then you get that in that space of that mindset, that loop that keeps going. I'm unworthy, and now you can see where we're ending up. People end up seeing me.
Yeah,
or they come into the store here,
which is just a Band-Aid.
Yep,
on what's actually going on.
Right.
Yeah. Man, I always love getting together with you, Greg, and talking about this. So we can get pretty deep on this.
Good.
Anything else you want to talk about while we're here, man?
You know what?
We talked about the book. We talked about some of the education stuff that you have going on, some speaking engagements. Yeah, man, it's been a great time.
That's it.
I don't
appreciate
know if there's anything else that we should or want to cover here, but we should do this again.
I'd love to.
Cool.
All right, brother.
All right. Thanks, brother.